Today I'm going to be painting a fantasy illustration with acrylics and talking about where I find inspiration for my art, as well as some tips and advice for how to find inspiration in your own work. I want to start out by talking about the painting just a little bit. I'm definitely not an expert with acrylics. I'm far from an expert, and it's kind of one of my least practiced mediums, so the process is a little all over the place, but I wanted to experiment a little bit. So this piece is on a wood canvas that I primed with gesso, and I'm starting out with some Liquitex Basics acrylics, and then taking over with Golden brand acrylics. I started this painting on a little bit of a whim, and I was hoping it would be something that I sort of casually worked on over time, but I ended up just sitting down with it and taking it to completion after it had been sitting in progress for a while, and overall it took me about 6 hours to complete. I feel like I could have done it much faster if it were a different medium, but I'm still working out my process with acrylics and how to do everything, honestly. I'm hoping with some more practice and learning I can get a little more streamlined with the medium, because I really love what it gives to an artwork. So I asked on Instagram if there was anything that people wanted to hear me talk about, and someone suggested that I talk about where I find inspiration for my pieces, so I thought that would be something fun to go into. I feel like it's a pretty helpful topic to discuss, and sort of in the realm of art block, which I know is a big thing that people seek advice on in these kinds of videos. I feel like oftentimes art block is kind of caused by the same few overarching themes, and inspiration is definitely one of them. I would love to make a video on my advice and sort of thoughts on beating art block sometime as well. Definitely let me know if you're interested in that. So for now, here is my advice for finding inspiration. So I vividly remember getting to a point in my work where I felt like I didn't have enough ideas for subject matter and imagery that I wanted to be creating. That was pretty important to me, and I wanted to spend time sitting down with it and getting over that hurdle. So one of the biggest things that helped me during that journey was sitting down and cultivating a list. They say that good artists borrow and great artists steal, so what you want to do is steal. But you want to do it on like a greater scale. You want to steal from a really wide variety of sources, and that is where originality comes from. There's no such thing as a new idea, so you want to take advantage of everything that's out there. I took all of my favorite artists, I took Pinterest boards of imagery that inspired me, saved collections on Instagram of posts that I loved, and since what I wanted to focus on at that specific time was subject matter, I went through and wrote down in words different commonalities that I found between them. I observed things that I saw repeating a lot, and I actually learned some things I didn't expect, and I wrote down any inspiring material I found in them. I also added to the list anything else that I'd found throughout my life that I wanted to see in my artwork, or just thought might be fun to explore, or things that I had fun making. Once I had that list written out, I went through and tried to learn to draw each of those things, whether it was studying broader things like fantasy subjects and the ways that they're commonly represented, or studying specific animals from photos. I tried to get a basic understanding of all or many of the different things. With plants, for example, I didn't know much about different types, so I went through and tried to learn some names of different ones that I liked the most, and then look up pictures of those. I wanted to do studies to learn them, and also figure out how I wanted to stylize them personally, what felt comfortable, and how they fit into the ongoing body of work that I already had. That ended up being a process for me that was ongoing for quite a while, but it's also an exercise you can do on a much smaller scale, maybe in just a sketchbook spread brainstorming session, or a singular illustration that contains a bunch of things you like. I know everyone learns differently, and some people might go about this process in a more organic or just indifferent ways, but I think it's extremely helpful if you're feeling stuck to sit down and take a look at what inspires you and then pursue that. I feel like most artists do this exact same thing in one way or another, just naturally, but if you're struggling with finding inspiration, it can be really helpful to break it down and follow a sort of process to pursue it. Personally, I'm a really analytical person, especially with learning and improving in art, so list making helps me a lot, and sitting down and doing that for the first time and then throughout time as I went along is what really launched me into creating a tangible fuel for my work that I honestly constantly pull from. Over time, it's of course become kind of just a pool of things in my brain that I pull from really easily, and I'm constantly adding to it. Maybe I'll be going through references and I find a new plant that I think is really pretty. Maybe I think of a new concept or see something in others' artworks and I decide that it's something I want to start including in my kind of illustrative universe. No matter how you do it, I think building a visual library for yourself is extremely beneficial. So that's kind of a concept for your broader body of work, but what about specific pieces? So I know for me these days, I do get a lot of kind of just flashes of imagery that I want to create, but I remember in the earlier times of building up my visual library, I didn't have too many of those. I know some artists can get into the idea that every artwork has to be inspired by some strike of lightning moment, and while some are, that definitely isn't always the case. Plenty of my artworks have come from me sitting down and deciding that I want to draw something, so I get out my sketchbook and I start thinking about what that could be. I might be looking at references for different poses and photos to find different angles and stuff, and then from my pool of common subject matter, I start adding in things that I want to combine with it, trying out different ways to put them together or fun ways to have things interacting. It could literally just be like, oh, flowers and portraits. What if I put the flowers coming out of their mouth? What if there's also stars there and this thing and this other thing? Or what if the flowers are sprouting from their hair? And from there, inspiration often can take over and I start having all sorts of new ideas. So I didn't start out with some idea or stroke of genius at all, but instead deliberately cultivated an idea that I liked and undertook a process to find something to draw. Honestly, that kind of game of cat and mouse is almost kind of a center point for my work. Always seeking or finding new things I want to draw and creating things out of them is a huge source of the inspiration and motivation for my artwork personally. Some artworks have a more profound or emotional source, but some of them, like this one, are just a simple kind of process like that. For this piece specifically, I was thinking about how I hadn't drawn any demons in a while. I've also been trying to include more clothing or just non-nude figures in my work, and lingerie is one of the paths I want to take for going about that, so that's something I wanted to include. I was also recently thinking about what my artwork is kind of missing and what I need for the vibe that I want, and skulls were something I wanted to include a lot more because I love the feeling that they add to things and the sort of things they can represent. So I combined that with a few other common motifs for me, the foliage and the stars, and that's basically where this whole piece came from. You can also, of course, do this for any other aspects of your work and not just subject matter. It can be helpful too if you maybe feel kind of unsatisfied with your work to see what's not doing it for you. Maybe it's color palettes or anatomy or your stylization of facial features, and you can go through the exact same process of observing those things in others' artwork or imagery. If you ever do this with just one singular artist and study exactly what they do, there's no harm in studying them to incorporate into your work, but you never want to steal something specific and claim it as your own. Always make sure you're taking bits and pieces and remixing them and combining them with other influences to make it your own. Another thing I want to say is that I think it's really important to focus on what you really like and want to be making and what you really love. The stuff that sparks joy, Marie Kondo style, is what you want to be creating. I know I've gotten into a lot of ruts with my artwork because I was trying to make things that I felt like people would like or that I should be making, and overall, I think it honestly just slowed me down from getting my work to where I want it to be. Taking time to do stuff that challenges you to grow as an artist, even if it's something that's maybe kind of hard to sit through, like studies, is necessary, but I also think it's really important to focus on making your art your happy space and making the art that you want to look at. There can be a lot of mixed influences on what you should be making, but I think that creating something that plays into what you love the most is really special, and I think it can be really important in not only creating a body of work that you feel proud to show people and put into the world and move forward with, but also in connecting with an audience that is as passionate about the imagery as you are. As long as you're pursuing what you love, you'll find people who share that same feeling in common with you. Just about everything I have to say about inspiration for now. I hope that you found something that was helpful or just enjoyed spending some time here. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I would love to hear your thoughts on inspiration and where you get it from in the comments, and for sure let me know if there's anything else you might want to hear me talk about. At the time I'm recording this original painting is also available, so you can message me if you are interested in owning it. All of my links are below, and if you left a like on this video or shared it with anyone, I would super appreciate it. You can subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.